G'day guys, Socket here. Today we're going to kick off round one of our Patreon car audio tuning exercises, and as I mentioned in the introductory video earlier in the week, this is going to be a participative virtual car audio tune using the measurements from my BMW SQ car audio system. So you don't need the microphones, you don't even need a car that's ready for tuning. We're going to do the whole tune using the measurements from my system. So the only thing you really need is a copy of REW to watch the tutorials from the tuning playlist, and to have a couple of hours free each week to do the little exercises each round. So in today's video, I'm going to take you through how this whole thing will work, what are the tasks for week one, and if you're not familiar with REW, or this is your first time playing around with the software and that type of thing, then hang around, because I'm going to do a very short tutorial on the major features of the software to get you sort of let you hit the ground running, so to speak. Alright, so let's dive on in. So how exactly is this going to work? Well, all of you that put your hand up and said, "Hey Socket, this sounds like a great idea, I'd love to be involved," you've given me an email so that we're able to exchange files. And so each week I'm going to send you an email with a copy of the REW measurements, any links to tutorials and things that you might need, and then a list of the activities for each round. And then you can take that all away. And then when you've finished the tasks, you can send me a copy of your results. And at the end of each week, I'm going to post my results and share the results of the that you guys have submitted. And that means you can check your progress against not only my results, but everybody else. Now, I know that a lot of people have said to me, "Oh yes, Socket, but I might not be able to keep up." Well, I'm going to try to keep the activities pretty short and brief. Clearly, if you've followed all the tutorials before and you've done a couple of tunes, it's going to be a lot easier than if you are coming into this and you haven't spent a lot of time with the tutorials and you haven't done a tune before. Clearly, there's going to be a little more work for you to catch up. But I'll try to keep things in bite-sized portions. And so, as I mentioned in the introductory video, we're going to basically follow the steps in the car audio tuning playlist. From the channel homepage into playlists, there's the analog mic sweep playlist that we're going to follow along, and we're going to start round one with the fourth video in the list, called Part 1 Crossovers. And don't worry, I'm going to send you the link to this tutorial. But essentially each week we're going to follow, I guess, the steps covered in the tutorials. If there's, if it's quite time consuming, like doing EQ, then I might break that down into over several weeks so that everybody can kind of keep up. But yeah, that's the basic process. So let's have a talk about the activities in this first round. So don't worry too much, you don't need to take notes or things like that. I'll put all the details in the email, but essentially we're going to follow the fourth tutorial in the playlist called Part 1 Crossovers. Now we'll have already set up all the equipment, or I've set up the equipment and I've already taken all the full range measures. They kind of look like this. So we're kind of up to this step in the process, and this tutorial covers setting a target line for your tune, creating a house curve, level matching all your speakers, and identifying rough crossovers. But as I said, I'll put all the details in the email. So when you complete the exercise, you should end up with a graph that kind of looks something like this. Okay, well, I hope it'll all make sense when you get to the end of the exercise. But just before we get started, I just want to point out a few things in the measurements. And so, first of all, you'll notice that I've used minus 12 dB, the measurement level of minus 12 dB with everything except the front sub and the rear sub, where I've used -24, and that's because the front sub and the rear sub were clipping when I was measuring them at -12, so of course I had to turn it down lower so they wouldn't clip. But you will need to adjust the front sub and the rear sub before you start setting your target level and all of that type of stuff, and that's covered in the how to do that is covered in the tutorial. The second thing that we're going to do in round one is actually select our crossovers, and once again I'll put all the details in the email, but we've got 12 speakers to deal with, and we don't want to set crossovers for all of them. Basically what we want to do is crossovers between your tweeters and your mids and your mid bass, your mid bass and your front sub and your rear sub, right? Both left and right, tweeters and mids, etc, etc. The ones you don't have to worry too much about is speakers 7, 8, which are the fronts, these left and this left and right front, or the left and right rears. They are going to be differential rear fill type speakers, so we don't need to worry too much about them. We'll cover them in a different episode. So for the moment you can just ignore the left and right front and the left and right rear, right, when you're coming to your crossover section. The other thing that I've created for you, and you don't need to worry about unless you want to have a crack at it yourself, is to create a house curve, right? So I've already done that for you. It's measurement 13. It is basically a pretty basic socket house curve, right? It's just a dead flat line with a 6 dB per octave low end rise starting at 250 hertz from memory. Yeah, 250 hertz. So if you're interested in having a go at making your own house curves and you want to sort of follow that part of the tutorial, it's a 250 hertz rise, 6 dB. And you should be able to sort of figure out that by following the tutorial as well. Okay. So there you go. I think that's the way things might pan out, and we'll polish the process a little bit as we sort of go forward and we learn. But as I said earlier, if you can't find time to do everything every week, that's perfectly fine. Work along at your own pace. Send me your results as you get them done. Drop out anytime if you want to. This is not a university course. This is just for fun. And of course, the weekly updates, watch them when you've finished each exercise. They will be spoilers if you haven't completed the task for a particular round when I'm sort of giving you the wrap up. But I hope you guys find this fun and enjoyable. And I guess for the guys that are kind of starting out, that haven't got a car, that haven't done much tuning, I hope that this becomes a valuable exercise to I guess training wheels for when you're going to do the tune on your own car. And to that point, I know that there are 2 groups that will be participating. So what I'm going to cover now is for the guys that haven't used REW much before. I'm going to show you where to find REW, how to download it, and all that type of stuff, how to load files, and use some of the basic features on it. Now I do have tutorials covering this in detail, but I'm just going to give you just some quick pointers so that you can get started. And because it is a tool that it's not the easiest thing to use, but it does get easier with use. So stick around, feel free if you want to. That's what we're going to cover next. Alrighty then, so I'm going to send you a copy of the measurements in the email, and what you need to do is just download it and save the copy somewhere, the measurement somewhere. And you can just open up the measurements by clicking on open, finding the file and clicking open, and everything will load up, and you'll get you'll see a screen that kind of looks like this, and you'll be going, oh well, how come I'm only seeing one measurement? And that's because this is the default screen for REW, and you need to click on all SPL, and then you should be able to see all the measurements of the full range measures of the BMW, right? But a couple of things first. What if you don't have a copy of REW, and what version of REW am I going to use for these exercises? So in the introductory video, I talked about using the new version of REW, or the beta version, which is version 5.4. But all of the tutorial videos are made using the current version of REW, which is version 5.31. And I don't want to confuse people by having the tutorial in one format and then doing the exercises in another. Certainly if you're familiar with REW and you know what you're doing, use whichever version you want. But if you're new to REW, or you're new to the car audio tuning and you want to follow the tutorials along and you want it to look the same, just download the current version of REW, which is 5.3.1.3. And the way to do that is head over to your favorite search engine, type in Room EQ Wizard. It will come up, and yeah, just click on that, and then all the downloads are here, right? For Windows and for Mac, and that will load up the most current version, right? So once you've got your copy of REW downloaded, just install the software. You'll end up with a shortcut on your desktop or whatever, and you can then open up the file. We don't need to set any preferences or anything like that. We might down the track, but for round one, the default settings in REW will be fine. Okay, so once you've got all your measurements set up, now what? If you're new to REW, I'm going to take you on a quick cook's tour of the major buttons and things that we're going to be using. But as I said earlier, I've got a bunch of tutorials on REW and all the features and things like that if you want to learn more. So feel free to go check those out. But basically, when I go around the screen, you've got all of your, open and save, and all of that type of stuff for opening files and saving files. So once you've done your work, make sure you save it, and then at the end of the week when you complete the exercise, email me a copy of your file or your results. This measurement button is the actual sweep measurement button for when we're doing sweeps, and then there is the pink noise RTA measurement button over here. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So open, save, that type of stuff for your files. All your measurements are listed down here. The one that you're working on is the one that is highlighted in white. All the others are kind of grayed out. Then we have our little toolbar here with all the different tools, so spectrograms and impulse responses and distortion graphs and things, all SPL and phase. Here's the little phase graph. But the one that we're going to use the most is the All SPL window. Most of these windows will only display one result at a time, or one measurement at a time, and it will always be the one that is selected or highlighted in white. So, if I want to look at the left rear impulse response, then I select the left rear, select impulse, and I can see it. But I can't look at two impulse responses at once. If I want to do that, I have to use this thing called the overlays, which I'll talk about a little bit later. Distortion, one result. Filtered IR, one result. SPL and phase, one result. The only button that displays multiple measures at the same time on this toolbar is the All Sound Pressure Level display. And here are all the measurements down the bottom. They match all of this over here, so measurement 1 through to measurement 13. And here is the resolution that the screen is displaying it in. Excuse me. And so if I want to display everything that I can turn them on and off just by clicking, click, right? Or I can right click and clear everything. I can right click and display everything, right? And then I might clear everything and say, I just want to look at the tweeters, right? Ooh, I don't like those colors, they're too close. So let me go over here to the right tweeter, click on the little paintbrush, and I'm going to change that to blue. Now I can see it a bit better, right? Or I don't like the I want to call that right tweeter. I can actually click there and just type in some new information. Or oh, I want to get rid of that measurement, I just click on the red cross. Oh, that was a mistake. I want to bring it back. Restore last removed. And that's fixed it up. How has it? Where's my, oh, it's popped it right down the bottom when you restore it. So now I want to left click and drag that all the way back up to here. Right? So these are all your measurements. That's how to delete them, change the color, change the title, move them around. Yeah, just like that. But back to this sort of display, as I said, you can display everything by right-clicking and selecting it, or right-clicking, getting rid of it, or I want to look at my left mid base and my left mid because I'm doing some crossover work. Yeah, just by clicking and displaying it, right? So we will be using this display a fair bit. The other one that we may use from time to time is the impulse response, but I tend to not use this particular button. I tend to look at the overlays. So the overlays is when we want to look at multiple measures at once. So if I just click on the overlay button, it's a separate window, so I can actually have them side by side if I want to, but I'm just going to blow that up. And once again, I can look at the responses just like the all SPL window, just by selecting them and whatever. I can look at a whole bunch of other stuff, but the two that we're going to use the most are impulse and phase, right? Particularly when we're coming to time alignment, right? So the impulse screen allows me to look at the different impulse responses and compare them to different speakers, right? So I might have my right mid compared to my right tweeter, okay? And here's the impulse response, and I might want to line up those two peaks, right? Which is covered in the tutorials, but this is what the overlays allows you to do. It allows you to display multiple measurements on the one screen. And let's get rid of those. Or I might want to look at the phase of, let's say, my right mid bass and my left mid bass, right? I want to look at the phase, and I will look at how they're performing, down here. And you can see that they're not kind of lined up, so they're not time aligned, right? But yeah, I won't go into a lot of detail, just to say that you can check this stuff out. Now, there is, if I go back to Impulse, just bring up any old measurements like this. There's many ways to change the view. I can, click on the little plus or minus icons. I can hold down the mouse wheel and move in and out or up and down. I can use the mouse wheel to scroll and zoom in and out, or I can use this button up here, which is called Fit to Data, right? Then I can hold down the control button and the right mouse while holding the control button and the right mouse button down. I can draw a box and then click in there somewhere. I can do that multiple times until I've zoomed in on the bit that I want to, right? No, I want to zoom in on that bit. So that's another way of moving around quickly in these screens. So that's the overlays screen, and the two buttons that we're going to use the most, which is impulse and phase. And to be honest, we're going to use them mainly when we are doing time alignment, right? All right, so back to, you can close that now, out of the overlays. We're now into back to our main menu. As I said, we're not going to use most of the stuff up here, just the overlays. When we come to do EQ work, let's say I want to EQ my left mid bass, I'm going to select the left mid bass and then hit the EQ button, and that'll bring up the EQ window where I can do my EQ work. But I won't go into that now. Just that's the second button of this top row that we will use. Overlays and EQ. All right, so back to this screen here. Once again, you can move around just by, you can change the view by clicking on these little buttons, minus and plus. You can get everything in, let REW fit it to the screen by clicking limits and then fit to data. Yeah, you can click on these things to change it from 20 to 20,000. Often doesn't work. Okay, so that's that one. The other button that we will use a fair bit is the Actions button. Okay, so if I click up here, this opens a sub-menu of different tools. There's a tool here for applying smoothing, and I'll talk about that in a moment. There's one here called Measurement Actions that allows you to move your graphs around. So I could select, for example, the house curve, and I can lower that house curve, wherever I like, that type of thing. And then I can play with that all day. It won't make a change until I hit add offset to data, right? So add this decibel change or cut to the house curve. But once I hit that, it's locked in. It's not reversible. If I want to change that, I'd have to add 5.1 to get it back to its original position. Okay, but hit 0 and it goes off it goes. So that's Measurement Actions to move or add gain or cut to a particular speaker. There's a thing called the alignment tool that we won't use much now, but this tool is used for looking at how speakers are adding up, looking at how they're playing together in terms of phase, being able to add delay, right, and see how things change for when we're doing time alignment work, right? So that's the alignment tool, which we'll use a fair bit later in the series. And then there is the Trace Arithmetic tool. So that's used to, well, let me just quickly show you. Let's say I want to see how two speakers might play together, right? So I've got my left tweeter and my right tweeter, and I want to know how they're going to sum up. I can hit Generate, and it will now give me a nice brown line. Let's make that orange. Okay, let's make that pink. Something we can see. Oh, it's not too bad. All right, so that will give me, REW will generate a plot as if these two speakers have been measured together to show you how they're summing together. Or, a whole bunch of other functions that you can do. But anyway, I'm sort of getting ahead of myself. So we don't want that measurement. That was just an experiment, so I'll just get rid of that. All right, so the other one is for smoothing. So when you take your measurements, they'll all be jaggery and look like this because we've taken them in full resolution, 1/48 full resolution. And that has its place, but generally I like to work in 1/6. It just gets rid of all of that detail. It makes life a lot easier to work with, particularly when you're doing EQ. So what you do is select all the measurements that you want the resolution set to 1/6. You come here, select 1/6, and then hit apply smoothing, and it'll smooth everything, right? None of the detail has been lost. It's like changing the resolution on your computer monitor or something, right? Nothing changes, just the way it's displayed. Now, why is that handy? Because we don't want all of the jaggeries, like if I'm looking at the left mid, right? This is in 1/6. If I've got it in 1/48, it's got all these peaks and things. So when I'm coming to EQ, I don't want to EQ that and that and that and that and that, right? All of these things. I'll use 50 bands of EQ. I want to just see it in 1/6. Thank you very much. But when I'm looking at that and I'm doing my EQ work, I might say, is there a cancellation there? That looks like a bit of a dip. Let me zoom in. Let's increase the resolution so I can take a better look. So I might just turn it on to 1/48 and I go, whoa, yes it is. It's actually a double cancellation there. Look at that. It's super deep. That is probably not going to respond to EQ, right? So there is a time and place to use the full resolution to sort of see what's going on in particular areas. So I probably wouldn't even bother trying to EQ that. I'd just have to accept that that's a cancellation and try to avoid it if I can, right? All right, so that is the action button, this action button, which gives you access to smoothing, to the alignment tool, to what we call SPL offset, so being able to move the your speaker measurements up and down. That's particularly handy when we're doing level matching, which we will get to in round 1. And trace arithmetic, which allows you to add, the right and the left mid together, right? Something like that, and generate a new measurement. that's handy for when we're checking summations and things like that. All right, guys, so that is a super quick rundown of REW. It should at least give you enough to get kind of started if you're unfamiliar with the tool. As I said, if you want more information, I've got plenty of tutorials on there. Oh, there's plenty of tutorials on the on the internet covering the basics of REW. So yeah, there you go, guys. So good luck with round one. I hope you enjoy it. And as I said, once you've finished your first round of measurements of activities, I should say, send me a copy of your REW file, and so I can collate that with everybody else's responses. But yeah, go out, have fun, and I will catch you in round two.